You are looking at your itinerary right now. 10 ports, maybe 12. The brochure photographs make every single one look like a postcard. Blue water, white sand, smiling locals waving from a dock. Now open a second tab, type in travel.state.gov, and search one of those port names. If a red level 4 banner fills your screen, that means the United States government is telling you do not go. Your ship is scheduled there next month. 7 ports on this list carry active warnings. Here is what happens when you walk down that gangway anyway. There is a piece of advice that floats around every cruise forum and travel group online. It goes something like this. Cruise lines would never send a ship somewhere dangerous. If the port were truly risky, they would skip it. That sounds reasonable. It is also wrong. Cruise lines are businesses. A port that fills cabins is a port that stays on the schedule. The calculation is not safety first. It is revenue first, then manage the safety problem with controlled excursions and supervised shore time. If the bookings keep coming, the ship keeps sailing. My name is Carol Brennan. I worked cruise ships. I stood behind the guest services desk. I watched us dock at ports where the crew briefing that morning included a warning not to leave the ship alone. The same port, the same warning, year after year. The gangway opened on schedule every single time because the itinerary sold and the excursion revenue justified the stop. The cruise line does not cancel a profitable port. It offers you a $40 bus tour that keeps you inside a fenced resort zone, and it calls that a solution. That is not the same thing as safe. Some of the ports on this list receive close to 1 million passengers every single year while carrying an active U.S. government advisory. The volume makes them feel normal. Normal is not the same thing as safe either. Number 1, Haiti. This is not a borderline case. This is not a level 2 exercise caution. This is not even a level 3 reconsider travel. Haiti carries a level 4 do not travel advisory from the U.S. State Department. That is the highest level that exists. There is no level 5. When your own government reaches for that red banner, it is telling you something plain. Do not go. We cannot guarantee we can help you if something goes wrong. The specific threats named in that advisory are kidnapping, crime, civil unrest, and gang violence severe enough to overthrow the sitting prime minister. This is not a country dealing with a rough neighborhood near the port. This is a country where the government itself was removed by armed gangs. I stood behind that guest services desk. I know what happened when Haiti was on the itinerary. Passengers came back late. Some came back shaking. Some did not come back at the scheduled time at all. And we stood at that desk watching the clock, making calls to local contacts, who sometimes answered and sometimes did not. The conversations I had with guests who made it back distressed, who had been followed, who had belongings taken off their person in broad daylight, those were not rare events. They were the reason we kept a specific binder for that port. Level 4 means the U.S. Embassy itself may not be able to reach you. It means if something happens 3 blocks from the dock, you are relying on local emergency services in a country where those services have functionally collapsed. Your ship will still dock there if it is on the schedule. Now you know why that is not the same thing as permission. Number 2, Belize City. This one is going to bother you because the math does not make sense. Belize City carries a U.S. State Department Level 3 Reconsider Travel Advisory. That is 1 step below Haiti, 1 step below Do Not Go. The government is telling you to think twice before setting foot there. Nearly 1 million cruise passengers arrive at that port every single year. Sit with that number for a moment. 1 million people a year walking down a gangway into a city their own government formally warns them about. 1 million. That is not a hidden port on some obscure itinerary. That is a major stop. That is a tender port where ship after ship anchors offshore and ferries guests into town, day after day, season after season. And this is where that myth I mentioned earlier does its real damage. 1 million passengers a year makes a place feel routine. You see the crowd on the dock, you see the vendors, you see the other couples from your ship walking the same direction, and your brain tells you this must be fine, Everyone is here. The ship brought us here. 1 million people did this last year. But volume is not a safety rating. Volume is a business decision. The advisory did not disappear because the ships kept coming. The ships kept coming because the bookings justified the risk on a spreadsheet somewhere. 1 million passengers and a level 3 warning exist in the same port at the same time. That is not a contradiction the cruise line will explain to you at the booking desk. Number 3, Jamaica. Now the pattern sharpens. Jamaica carries the same level 3 reconsider travel advisory as Belize City. Same government, same warning level, same plain language telling you to think twice before you go. And the passenger volume here is not close to 1 million. It is up to 1.4 million cruise passengers a year across 5 separate ports on one island. That makes Jamaica the highest volume level 3 destination on this entire list. More ships, more gangways opening, more guests walking into a country their government has formally flagged. 5 ports means 5 different docks, 5 different local environments, 5 different sets of streets beyond the terminal fence. It is not one controlled area that the cruise line has managed into something predictable. It is an entire island's coastline being used as a revolving door for passengers who, in most cases, have never seen that advisory page. 1.4 million passengers a year and a standing government warning. 5 ports and rising crime levels that create elevated risks for tourists, particularly those venturing outside secured port areas. The guests who sat across from me filling out incident forms had the same look every single time. They did not know. Nobody told them. The brochure showed a waterfall and a beach bar, and they assumed the rest. If Belize City bothered you because of the math, Jamaica should bother you more. The numbers are bigger, the advisory is identical, and the pattern holds. Number 4, Mexico's Pacific coast. Now we leave the Caribbean and move into waters you have almost certainly seen advertised. Mazatlan, Puerto Vallarta, Manzanillo. These are not obscure stops buried in fine print. These are the headline ports on Mexican Riviera itineraries, the ones printed in bold on the brochure cover, the ones your travel agent mentions by name because they sound warm and familiar and fun. Unan has seen the photos, the arched doorways, the sunset over the marina, the cold drink on a terrace above the ocean. And inside that resort perimeter, inside that tourist corridor, much of that is real. The tile is beautiful. The food is extraordinary. The water is that color. But the security challenges linked to these ports are not petty theft or a pickpocket on a bus. They are linked to cartel violence. That is a different category of risk than anything else on this list so far. Haiti has civil collapse. Belize and Jamaica have crime driven by poverty. Mexico's Pacific coast has organized, territorial, armed conflict operating in the regions immediately surrounding the places your ship docks. The resort bubble exists. I am not denying that. What I am telling you is how thin that bubble is. The line between the tourist corridor and the territory beyond it is not a wall, it is a street. Sometimes it is half a street. These ports feel familiar because you have heard their names your entire life. That familiarity is exactly what makes them dangerous. You stop thinking of them as foreign. You stop being careful. And careful is the only thing that keeps that bubble intact. Number 5, Barcelona. Now the list shifts. Everything before this was a country where the threat had weight behind it. Gangs, cartels, civil collapse, the kind of danger that makes your stomach tighten before you even leave the ship. Barcelona is not that. Nobody is going to kidnap you on La Rambla. Nobody is pointing a weapon at you outside the Sagrada Familia. The U.S. government is not telling you to stay home. But Mediterranean ports like Barcelona experience frequent pickpocketing targeting cruise passengers at major tourist sites. And that is a different kind of danger, not a bullet. A hand in your bag while your eyes are on a cathedral ceiling. A zipper opens so gently you do not feel it. A wallet gone between one photograph and the next. The loss is not your life. It is your credit cards, your cash, your identification, your sense of ease for every remaining day of a trip you saved 2 years to take. It is standing in a police station in a foreign city trying to file a report in a language you do not speak while your ship is 3 hours from departure. This is financial predation. It is practiced, professional, and aimed directly at people who look exactly like cruise passengers look. Cameras out, bags unzipped, attention everywhere except where their belongings are. And Barcelona is only the beginning of this pattern. Number 6, Rome and Venice. The same pattern that operates in Barcelona operates here. The same professional hands, the same targets. Cruise passengers standing in a crowd with their attention lifted towards something beautiful and their bag hanging open at their hip. Rome and Venice are bucket list destinations. You have been thinking about the Colosseum for 30 years. You have been picturing yourself on a water taxi in the Grand Canal since you were 40. And when you finally step off that ship and stand in the place you dreamed about, your guard is not just down, it is gone. You are not thinking about your passport. You are thinking about the moment. That is exactly when it disappears. The emotional cost here is not a hospital bill or a missing person report. It is a dream trip hollowed out in 4 seconds. It is spending the afternoon your spouse planned for 6 months sitting in an Italian police station instead of standing inside the Sistine Chapel. It is the story you tell when you get home being about what was taken instead of what you saw. The danger at these ports is not a reason to stay on the ship. It is a reason to go prepared. Number 7, Athens. I saved this one for last because it is the one I cannot get out of my head. The other ports on this list cost you money. They cost you peace of mind. They cost you a day. Athens can cost you the entire cruise. Cruise passengers in Athens have had passports stolen on public transport en route to Piraeus port. Not at a tourist site, not in a restaurant, on the bus or the metro between the city and the dock, the same route every cruise passenger takes to get back to their ship. Think about what that means. Your passport is gone. You are standing on a train platform. Your ship is at Piraeus. Boarding closes in 90 minutes. And you no longer have the one document that lets you walk up that gangway. The ship does not wait. That is what passport theft on transit means in a port city. A stolen document becomes a missed sailing. You are now alone in a foreign country with no identification, no consulate appointment, and a suitcase that is sailing toward the next port without you. Every other item on this list is something that happens to you in port. This one removes you from the cruise entirely. That is why it sits at the end. So after all of that, here is the part that actually matters. The guests who came back fine, trip after trip, port after port, almost always did one specific thing differently from the ones who ended up at my desk filling out incident reports. They booked through the ship. That is it. That is the single largest dividing line I saw in 26 years. The passengers who used cruise line excursions or stayed inside the secured port area came back on time, came back with their belongings, came back calm. The ones who walked out the gate and flagged down the first taxi they saw were the ones I worried about. And I want you to understand why that one decision changes everything, because it is not just about convenience or staying in a group. It is about the system working underneath. When you book through the ship, you are stepping into an excursion run by a vetted operator. That means the cruise line has checked that company, confirmed their licensing, reviewed their safety record, and approved the specific route they drive. The vehicle has been inspected, the driver is known, the destination is pre-approved. There is an established safety protocol between that operator and the ship, so if something goes sideways, the ship knows where you are and has a direct line to the person responsible for you. Compare that to what happens when you walk out the port gate and wave down a taxi on the street. That driver has not been checked by anyone. You do not know where he is taking you. You do not know the route. You have no backup plan if something goes wrong and the ship has no idea where you are. There is no emergency contact system connecting you back to your vessel. You are simply gone, and if you do not reappear at the gangway by sailing time, the ship leaves without you. That is the mechanism. vetted operators, known routes, established protocols, and a direct emergency line back to your ship. That system does not exist outside the port zone. It does not exist in a random taxi. It does not exist when you wander 3 blocks past the terminal fence because a local told you about a cheaper restaurant. Unvetted taxi services are the specific risk. A driver you did not choose taking a route you do not know to a destination you cannot verify in a city where you have no orientation and no backup plan. That is where the trouble starts. Not on the dock, not inside the terminal, in the back of a car you found on the street. This is not about fear. I am not telling you to hide on the ship and watch the port through a window. I am telling you what I knew behind that desk for a quarter of a century. Book through the ship or stay inside the port zone. That one decision changes the math on almost every port I just named. Now, a list like this raises an obvious next question. Tell me in the comments which port on this list surprised you most, or which one you want me to cover in more detail. The next video is what to do if something actually goes wrong in port. It is the natural next step after today. So let me leave you with the short version of everything I just told you. 7 ports, all of them on active itineraries right now. The advisory levels range from the highest warning the U.S. government issues down to destinations where professional theft rings operate in broad daylight. The common thread is that volume does not equal safety, and your cruise line's decision to dock there is a business calculation, not a safety endorsement. Book through the ship. Stay inside the port zone. Know the advisory level before you walk down that gangway. And carry your passport in a body pouch that sits under your clothing, not in a bag that hangs off your shoulder. I am Carol Brennan. I will see you in the next one.